What do you know?
We got a rabbit trail.
We got a segment, guys. This is time for our theological rabbit trail. All right. All right, guys. So there is something interesting in here before we summarize this chapter that I think it's important to point out because a lot of confusion comes from this chapter.
There is.
Wes, was Abraham supposed to cut those sacrificial animals in halves?
Was he supposed to?
Right.
I didn't see that he was specifically commanded to in these passages.
Yeah. So if we check here, it says, verse 10, Abram brought all these to him, split each of them down the middle, and laid the halves opposite each other.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's worded to us.
Right.
In that passage is that he split them down the middle and laid the halves opposite each other. So just like we always try to teach everybody through finding context, one of the ways that you find context is you search for translator insertions. So according to Torah, this is not how you present a sacrifice.
Right.
So let's look at Jubilees 14, 9 through 11, the parallel accounts to this moment here in Genesis 15. And verse 9, he said unto him, take me a heifer of these 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is near Hebron. By the way, this is the middle of the 3rd month, so this is Shavuot. And he built there an altar and sacrificed all these, and he poured their blood upon the altar and divided them in the midst and laid them over against each other. But the birds he divided not. He not.
Okay.
So people would think, well, see, it says right there, he divided them in the midst. In the midst, right? Is that what that means, though? Does that mean cut them in half?
That doesn't have to mean that, just based on what you believe is there.
So let's look at the KJV of Genesis 15:10, where we're going to look at different translations about, instead of them being split in half from the translation that I read, and this is the original KJV, it says he took unto him all these and divided them in the midst, and he laid each piece one against another, but the birds divided he not. Now this is more synonymous with the Jubilees account.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, the wording.
So then if we go to Genesis 15:10 from the Aramaic Bible in plain English, it says he took to him all of these and divided them equally and laid the members against its counterpart, and he did not divide the birds. That still may give someone the impression, so wait, does that mean he divided them equally? So therefore, he must have cut them in half. I could see how they can draw that conclusion, but that's only if you don't know Torah. This is Torah Portions, guys. We're going to learn Torah. Genesis 15:10 in the Septuagint, it says, so he took to him all these. He divided them in the midst. Oh, there's that synonymous phraseology from the Greek translated Jubilees as well as the KJV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he divided them in the midst. Let's look at what a person is supposed to do for a burnt offering when it comes to livestock in Leviticus 1, 10 through 13. If, however, one's offering is a burnt offering from the flock or from the sheep or from the goats, he's to present an unblemished male. He shall slaughter it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, are to sprinkle its blood against the altar on all sides. He is to cut the animal into pieces, and the priest shall arrange them. You remember the utensils they used to put the actual pieces that they had cut up and filleted and trimmed to the fat and taken the hide off? They put them on the actual altar with the little utensils they had.
Yeah.
That was instructed in Exodus. That's why. That helped them reach over. Have you ever worked on a grill so big that you don't want to reach over the fire? You need a long stick to put the meat out there in the center of the grill. That's all this is.
Okay.
So this is a part of the priestly duty for them to actually set up, like, the literal practical detail of them having a huge cooking surface and not wanting to burn their clothes. So they had to have actual utensils to take the sacrificial meat and place it and arrange it evenly throughout the altar so that it all cooks. If anyone's ever had a huge grill and cook for 20 people, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Where you have to arrange the pieces equally so that, but there's already an instruction for them to be cut in a proper way according to the priesthood, according to the requirements for the sacrifice. You don't split them in half. You don't put something that looks like a huge saw just went down the middle of an animal when it's like half bone and half skin and half sinews and half, that's not how the instructions for Torah tells you to prepare the animal to put it on the altar. So verse 12, the priest is to cut the animal into pieces, and the priest shall arrange them, including the head and the fat atop the burning wood that's on the altar. The entrails, the legs must be washed with water, and the priest shall bring all of it and burn it on the altar. It's a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It goes on to say, if instead one's offering to the Lord is a burnt offering of birds, remember Abraham used both livestock and birds, he is to present a turtle dove or a young pigeon, just what Jubilees tells us. Then the priest shall bring it to the altar, twist off its head, and burn it on the altar, and its blood should be drained out on the side of the altar. He is to remove the crop from its contents and throw it to the east side of the altar in the place for ashes. He shall tear it open by its wings without dividing the bird completely.
That's
you guys
what it
ever
said there too.
Yeah, that Abraham didn't divide the birds, right? So because you guys ever filleted something, but you didn't actually tear it apart in two pieces, right? You butterflied it. That's all it's
Okay.
talking about, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
That's all it's saying. Like
What is the
the
crop?
animal,
What's the crop of a bird?
the thing where they keep stuff in the below their neck.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, and the priest is to burn atop the altar with the burning wood, to burn offering made by fire, pleasing aroma to the Lord. So the point is, guys, you don't slice up the birds. You take off their head, yes, but their bodies you don't cut into multiple pieces and arrange it on the altar. You keep them all. You keep the bodies together. You can break their wings, but you keep the bodies together because why are you breaking their wings? So that you can flay it out and lay it flat. This is why you butterfly something. But the animals, you don't cut them in half. You cut them up properly as instructed in the Torah, and then you arrange those pieces on the altar. That is how you divide it in its midst.
Got it.
So the reason why I say that is because it is not... Judaism has taken this Genesis 15 moment and they've created an entirely separate practice that is not detailed for the priests in Torah, and they call it a threshold covenant. They claim that Abraham in Genesis 15 took this sacrifice, cut open these animals and filleted them open on two sides and walked through the bloody canal in between them as a death pact with Yahweh, to say that this is what's called a threshold covenant, meaning that I'm going to walk between these birds or between these animals that have been filleted in half. And if I break the rules of this covenant, you can kill me.
It makes sense that Judaism would do that since they reject the priesthood. They then reject the practices of the priests. So then they would have to reinterpret, what's going on there. And then also, go ahead. You first.
I said they reject Jubilees. So they reject the idea there's an actual altar there.
Right.
And they promote a concept of Yahweh coming to be their savior. So therefore, which is where Trinitarianism grabbed this idea to say that, he had to die for you to save you. Whereas Judaism would say, well, no, Yahweh is the only savior, not the son. So therefore he had to save it because he made this pact with Abraham. And since Abraham broke it, he had to come save Abraham. See what I mean? So they twist all this and ignore the priesthood and all the details for it because they take this part of the translation without looking at the supplementary passages. So yeah, lots here.
It is. There is. Also in my studies, I found it interesting that it's something prevalent in Freemasonry that they have a threshold covenant and threshold superstitions. Makes you wonder if it didn't come from there, from this.
Kabbalah mystery religion. Absolutely, brother. Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same. So yes, thank you guys for letting us engage on that theological rabbit trail.